It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley, wishing everyone a peaceful Good Friday. Gary, how are you?
I'm doing very well.
Yeah.
Hanging in there. Yeah. So,
All right.
been an interesting day.
Yeah.
Where do we start? Oh, I know one thing, and this came up earlier this week. We just didn't get a chance to talk about it because of the bridge collapse. But I got a couple of emails on it, and they said, "Wow, you guys, called it," because we had said the Republicans are not going to impeach Trump. Excuse me, Biden.
Right.
Or Trump. But they're not going to impeach. That was never the goal, and we stated that how long ago? Months upon months.
I think from the beginning, really.
Yeah, as soon as we saw the impeachment inquiry, we said, no, they're not going to impeach, because the last thing they're going to do a couple of months before the election is impeach him in the House and then not get a conviction in the Senate. What they wish to do is just everyday drip, 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 corruption as part of the campaign to defeat Biden in November. Mm-hmm. And so that was never the goal of Republicans. And Comer said this week that in the fundraising email that he sent to donors that, they'll be looking for criminal referrals.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, there was like a blip of Democrat. Well, see, they're not going to impeach. And the response was simply, they never said they were.
Right. The word inquiry is what's important here.
And then that died. I thought the Democrats would try to make more of it, and they did not.
Yeah.
And now we'll get to the story of Comer saying, okay, we've invited the president to come and sit down and testify, and here are the questions that we would ask him.
Yeah.
The 4 questions. We'll get to that coming up in a little bit, but I just thought that was interesting. The other thing is that jumped out on me, Jon Stewart going after Trump and the fraud. He really doesn't have a clue, does he?
No.
And we talked about the first part of it, where he just basically was repeating the charges and saying, see, these are serious, without, of course, getting into the minutia of it. But then he got pounded when he came out and said that if Donald Trump gets, here it is, money isn't infinite. A loan that goes to a liar doesn't go to someone who's giving a more honest evaluation, so the system becomes incentivized for corruption.
Yeah.
He has no idea how banks work.
No.
Unless you're a bank getting ready to default, you have as much money as you need to loan.
Yeah, right.
I don't know of any liquid bank that has ever not given a loan to somebody who wants a loan, because you can go and borrow from other banks. You've got the capital to do it, and even if you didn't, you could borrow from other banks to get the money to loan to people. Nobody is denied a loan if they can get a loan. And they accept the terms of the loan.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just, I know John Nolte of Breitbart, verdict, false. The amount of money available for loans from banks is not diminished when banks make loans to other customers, except in the rare case of a distressed bank that is capital constrained. A loan to one customer does not subtract from a fixed pool of loans available to the customers of the bank. Stewart's comments reflect a misconception of a bank as a kind of money vault where taking some money out leads to less money for others for loans. In fact, bank loans create deposits. These loans must be backed by capital in accordance with regulatory requirements, but well-capitalized banks never run short of capital to make new loans. The deposits must be backed by reserves, which can be borrowed from other banks if they run short. When a bank makes a loan to Donald Trump, it does not leave less for loans to other customers. Money is not infinite, but bank loans do not diminish the amounts available for other bank loans. So there it is. But
Well, and we would know this as the, banking public, customers of banks. We would know this right away if that were the case. Well, number one, they would all have to, because they're publicly, the big ones are all publicly traded companies. They would have to tell us, they would have to make all of the investors very aware, and the public in general, aware of, if it were the case that they had limited capital and a finite amount of capital to loan to others, then it would be, okay, our reserves are lowered to this amount, so we're going to pull back on loans. You would see this kind of, and imagine what kind of case that would be. This isn't Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life. Oh, how much money do you need, John? Come on. You have any brains?
we would hope that most banks don't have an Uncle Billy.
My lips bleeding, Bart. It's best line of any Christmas movie. Second best line of any Christmas movie. Yippee-ki-yay is number one. But here's the...
Oh, yeah, I'm full of holiday spirit when I hear that full quote.
Yes. Oh, I am. I'm ready to go at it. And here's the... But that is, the mindset of, well, quite frankly, the clueless. But it's also the same mindset that has them believing or wanting others to believe, I don't know, it's one of the two, that the rich, there's a finite amount of wealth, of money in general, that the rich have all this money and you don't have any, and that there is essentially no more than what is already here in the marketplace. You know nothing about wealth expansion. If you think that, or if you want others to think that, then you're an all-out liar and you're a con artist. I don't know which is the case, but you're one or the other. And, to believe that the banks basically just are limited, and others are suffering as a result of someone getting a massive loan. By the way, wouldn't need to be a massive loan. In the case of the New York case, the Attorney General, even though it's been reduced to $175 million, that's still way too high. So I agree it should be a smaller loan, much smaller loan. But that's the clueless leading the clueless. Keep in mind, when it comes to Jon Stewart, how many young kids were saying they were getting their, at the time when he was on The Daily Show, getting their news every night from him. It's like, yeah, okay.
Well,
I believe that.
Since he's been gone, the sophistication of the people responding on Twitter and social media to pound you if you put out something they're incorrect has now become almost a business.
Yeah. No, it has been.
You see it all the time, but it was like when I read that with Stewart, I went, man, how clueless can you be? And he probably, he's probably going, well, I've got him on this one. I mean, don't Democrats know how to debate this? I know how to debate this. These are the points that I'm going to make, and these are strong points. It's like, you're clueless.
Well, it's like you're applying this whole redistribution of wealth mindset to banking.
Right.
You have no clue how it works. Now, does someone like a Donald Trump have a much better chance of getting a loan for $175 million than Eric Harley? Yeah. In fact, Eric Harley's chances are 0.0. I can tell you that. I would deny me. And we know that's based on what? That's based on his assets. That's based on what he has. That's based on his ability to secure such a loan.
Did Kevin O'Leary respond to him?
I don't know.
He didn't yesterday.
Yeah.
But I wonder if he did. I'm looking at just a couple of things here. I don't see it.
Yeah.
I would assume that I'm assuming that he would. That would be the first thing.
If he hasn't yet, I would think that he will. But I don't know.
Yeah, because Stewart went after him.
Yeah.
Basically saying O'Leary doesn't know what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start seeing what he's writing. It's like what Stewart started writing. It was like, wow, no, Kevin O'Leary actually knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You, by these statements, are absolutely clueless about how the banking system works.
Well,
he's really out of touch. It doesn't seem like this is more of an analysis of his show and where we are today. It doesn't resonate the same way, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's because it is a different generation, and it's a generation that insists now, I think, on doing more of their own fact checking, which is a good thing. Not that the clueless aren't still out there, but those are the willfully ignorant. Those are the people that look. There's no reason that you can't find all this stuff out. If you know zero about, in this case, banking and how lending works, you can find it out quickly. Spend a little time. Or you can decide not to and just issue an ignorance-based comment. You can do that.
You were saying it during our pre-show meeting, and it was a great point. Just how often people get basic things wrong that you can fact check on your phone. The information is there immediately, and it's as if we can go back to the statement from years ago. It's like nobody knows the internet exists, both for things they say when they take the opposite opinion of something that clearly is on video, but also they don't use the internet to have a clue as to what's really going on. And as you said, the smartphone's right there. All you got to do is go like this, okay, what's this? You can find out almost anything you want within 30 seconds.
Well, because I have witnessed in meetings, and people that will sit, and it's like it's a meeting, so it's a roundtable situation where they go around the table and nobody knows the answer to something, and not one person looks down at their phone and says, "Hold on a second, let me see if I can find the answer." Because the whole purpose of the meeting is to find answers, find solutions, make a plan. That's the whole idea. And it's mind-boggling how, and I don't know. It's just the lack of will. I don't know. But really also how many people don't, I'm surprised by how many people these days don't already know certain things, even about their own industry. And it's, there's plenty of stuff I don't know. There's plenty of stuff that, if you, bring up, if a story happens, if there's an issue or something, there's plenty of stuff. I tend to be curious based on my natural curiosity, but also based on what I do for a living. I don't know why it seems more and more people aren't curious, and they have a better opportunity and a greater access to the information than ever before. Going back, I think it was, 10, 15, 20 years ago when they said the amount of information you have available to you right now would take you 100 years ago, would take you 100 years to find.
Mm-hmm.
And that says everything. Well, now fast forward to smartphones and how intuitive things are. I was telling you, I love the fact that on these newer vehicles and the last couple of vehicles I've had, I can just say, play Eric Clapton. And then Eric Clapton just starts playing. You can find answers to anything. It's so easy. Life in terms of information and the exchange of information and what technology provides, it's never been easier. It's never been easier. And yet, people just, I guess, want to live in what I wonder is it that if you come in with the answers, everybody's going to be looking to you to do the work on the solutions? Because that's often the case. Well, we're going to make you I remember, and this is scary for folks. This will sound very scary. And it was years ago. It was well over 3 decades ago. They made me the jury foreman when I sat on a jury one time. I think of that, and I think of the 30-plus years ago. It had to have been 31, 32 years ago, at least. And I think of that, and I think, Wow. I never would have selected, especially that age, Eric, as the jury foreman. Now, I did lay it out. It was an easy case. Well, I'll say this. Our instructions from the judge were very clear. So to that extent, anybody could have done it, and I didn't have a problem. But you think about how people these days, it just, I don't know, it's anecdotal, but I seem to be running into more and more people that are like, yeah, I don't know. Now, on the other side of that, in the service industry, again, anecdotally, I'm running into more and more people that actually seem to be more enthusiastic about their jobs, and maybe it's the turnover, maybe it's new people coming into the industry, maybe I've just been running into people that are in management training. I don't know. But that's kind of encouraging.
I look at people that are just economically clueless. I mean, it's amazing how many Americans are. And use that example this week that was just so dang funny. And it was the kitchen appreciation fee that we talked about earlier this week.
Yeah.
And
perfect example.
And so I'm looking down at all the comments, and it was a woman who came out and said, "This needs to stop. They need to pay this kitchen fee has to go. They need to pay those kitchen people living wages and not pass the cost on to us."
Yeah.
And people they're completely and totally clueless. And then the number of people that agreed with her. You're right on there. They need to eat some of the cost. It's like, do you understand how businesses work?
Yeah, right.
It's not a share. Well, look, the customer's going to take and pay this amount for it, and then they're paying their fair share, and then the owner needs to pay their fair share.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't work that way.
No.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. It's not always easy to spring back from the harsh days of winter to warmer months ahead. From de-icing chemicals to hidden debris underneath snow and ice, winter conditions can do serious damage to your truck. Here's a must-do maintenance check to help you minimize downtime and stay rolling. Have your batteries tested and inspect your electrical system for any exposed connections, wires, or butt connectors. Get any exposed components repaired immediately, as the acidic nature of highway de-icers will erode any exposed connections or wires in no time at all.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. The politics of a police funeral when a police officer is shot and killed by somebody who should have been in jail.
Yeah.
We have to bring that up because the left was trying to find anything yesterday to go after Trump. Well, Trump's making politics out of it. Well, yeah, he's a politician.
Yeah.
That's what politicians do.
Right.
And if a politician decides, look, what's going on here with police departments in these liberal cities is unconscionable, and that's what he promotes, that's good politics.
Yeah, it is.
That's solidly good politics.
Well, look, we're going to have to do, this. Americans know. We saw it when the defund the police thing started. Then you saw the polls. Well, we don't want to defund the police in our neighborhood, just other neighborhoods where police are bad, and it was just ridiculous. Because it comes down to this. We want police to be out there. But the left won that to the extent that a number of departments were defunded, and now no one wants to do a very dangerous job. That needs to be fixed.
Soon, they'll be going into a deep dive. Make time. Red Eye Radio.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here is Trump yesterday.
They're not given the respect. The police are the greatest people we have. There's nothing and there's nobody like them, and this should never happen. I just visited with a very beautiful wife that now doesn't have her husband. Stephanie was just incredible. Their child, brand new, beautiful baby, sitting there, innocent as can be, doesn't know how his life has been changed. But the Diller family you'll never be the same. You can never be the same. And we have to stop it. We have to stop it. We have to get back to law and order. We have to do a lot of things differently because this is not working. This is happening too often.
You know, one of the things that I noticed immediately, I think it was on CNN. Is it John King?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Talking about, Trump taking advantage of this and that, crime is up in some areas, but it's down nationwide. This isn't a fight or a debate about crime nationwide. This is about crime in the Democratic cities.
Mm-hmm.
This is about what's going on with those cities that have defunded the police. This is about a police officer, Jonathan Diller, who was killed by somebody who shouldn't have been out on the streets. And so what you saw from the left, there's Trump taking advantage. Look at that. Look at what Trump is doing, taking advantage of a police officer being killed. It was, believe it or not, on The View, where Alyssa Farah Griffin admitted that former President Trump understood what resonates with middle America better than President Biden does as the two presidential nominees had a very, very different events on Thursday in New York City, as we know. Trump went to the funeral. He spoke. Biden went to a massive fundraiser of large donors. The optics were not good. And when they bring it up on The View, when that's brought up on The View, that's one indication that it's hitting pop culture.
Yeah.
And that's what's dangerous. You and I talked about earlier this week, and we were quite furious. If you listened, was it Wednesday? I can't remember what day it was. About the betrayal of our hostages in Israel, the official betrayal from the president.
Right.
The fact is, 30 years ago, the country would have been furious at what the president did. You don't even hear many Republicans pounding on that every day. How dare? What I've heard a lot about is we're abandoning Israel. Well, yeah, but you're also abandoning and betraying the hostages, the American hostages that are still left over there. You're just saying no by abstaining on that UN vote. And that's what infuriated us, because we saw it at Abbey Gate with the Marines. We saw it. We saw what happened there. We saw the line about from Biden as to what the generals told him. And he went out there and lied right before the American public and said there wasn't one military official that said we need to stay here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what was it? 180 degrees, not 179 or 178, 180 degrees different, because every commander told him that they needed to stay in there and don't do what you're doing. And yesterday was a continuation, as we said, and we stated this, remember, in COVID. Remember when they said, well, we will care about the American public. We need to shut down, lock down, do this. And it was like, what about the border?
Yeah, right.
What about the border? Because they were still doing it in 21 when Biden became president. What about the border? You don't care about the border. People are coming in. You're not checking them. You don't give a damn about Americans. Otherwise, you wouldn't have opened the border like you did during the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
And it just continues day in and day out, where you get this sense Biden just doesn't care about Americans at all on every front. And I think it was highlighted yesterday, and I think, for example, if The View is bringing it up, because I know what the response was, well, Trump's playing politics with this. There's nothing bad with playing politics. People always say that. You and I have hit that many times. Well, he's playing politics with it. Well, if it's good politics, it's good. It's a positive. There's nothing wrong. It's moral.
Yeah.
If
exactly.
Trump is going there and saying, wait a minute, I'm speaking, this can't happen.
Right.
We can't allow this. We need law and order in the cities.
Yep.
And that resonates. You've got the cops behind it. You had was it the Sergeants Union head that came out and said, we don't want any Democrat attending here. You don't give a damn, really.
Right.
So don't come, at that point, don't be a hypocrite and claim you care about cops out there when you won't defend cops. And you and I said this a long time ago because when we came out and said, no, police departments are not systemically racist to hunt down and kill blacks. That's a lie. And we pounded on that when that blue wave of intimidation was all across the country. And we said, this is BS. And as we have said, as a society, when it comes to law enforcement, you need to honor them and respect them for what they do when they do right. But when they do wrong, you do have to hold them to a higher standard.
Yep.
And there's this, the left will always throw out this argument, no, I support the I support the cops. And no, we need to give police officers the ability to go after the bad people. Oh, so you don't care if they kill people. What the hell are you talking about? No. Of course I care if they kill people and it's not justified.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't care about that? Most police officers I know. Every good police officer I know. Because as we have said, in any profession, you're going to find good human beings and bad human beings. But for the most part, you have police officers that have decided, I am willing to sacrifice my life to protect this city, to protect this town, and to serve the public. That, in our society, must be respected and honored. And at the same time, if there's a dirty cop, you go after them hard.
Well, it's like saying, there was a doctor that was acting and criminally in a situation. All doctors are criminals. No, they're not. You can apply it to any profession. You can apply it to any profession. You weed out the criminals regardless of what profession they're in, including law enforcement. And you go after them. And you prosecute based on the evidence. And each case stands alone. Just like any case with anyone who's arrested for anything stands alone, it doesn't indict any group of individuals unless a certain group was responsible directly for that crime. This isn't hard. Let's quit being stupid. We all know this. Yet we refuse to pay attention, and we start like children screaming, and I shouldn't say we because I never did it and I never will, defund the police. You're a moron. You're an anarchist. You're a criminal. You're one of those because you don't want the cops around. Something tells me something's wrong with you, and you need to be looked into, quite possibly. What kind of person says that? I want my neighborhood protected for the people that I love, the people that are my neighbors, the community where I live, the feeling of being secure in a neighborhood. But no, we can't have nice things. We've got to jump on the cause of the day. Liberals are clueless. These activists are morons. And I'm done tiptoeing around, by the way. I used to hate calling names. Now I actually love it. You're a moron. I get satisfaction saying you're a moron if you're screaming defund the police. That actually gives me satisfaction saying it because it's true, and I don't care what you think of me for saying it.
You know, you and I, when you look at, because the defense yesterday coming from Democrats, or the attack on Trump, was crime is actually down. Some crimes are up, but many crimes are down across the country. We're not talking about the country. In New York City, what are we talking about? The smash and grabs that are being allowed.
Right.
The subway system, what's going on there.
Right.
You know, you look at these different liberal cities here. We look at Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia can't even provide, what did they have? 20 cops, I think, that were all available in an overnight shift for all of Philadelphia.
Right. And wasn't there a great depletion of officers on the force there in Milwaukee? Well, I forget what the numbers were. But
was it Minneapolis or Milwaukee?
Maybe it was Minneapolis. Yeah. We'll go back and revisit that.
San
but
Francisco,
you're seeing it in other cities. You know, and that's the thing. I was about to mention San Francisco.
Yeah.
And why is it that you have a depletion of officers? Well, a couple of things. You get into the, you know, when you start with defund the police, and then the local leaders are helping them do it and actually enact the policy, de Blasio in New York. And, we're just reallocating funds. You mean you're defunding the police? And that's the thing, too. They didn't even want to own what they were calling for. They were shouting, defund the police, along with protesters. They did it and then turned around and then wouldn't stand with their own protest. You're a coward. This is not hard. None of this is hard. We know why law enforcement exists. We know that if a bad cop exists, that bad cop should be weeded out by the good cops and take the evidence and prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. This isn't difficult. But when we started down this road of defund the police, what do you think is going to happen now that police are targets? People come here from other countries and decide that they can beat police officers because they know that a prosecutor like Bragg is going to go easy on them. And sure enough, he did, and allowed them to go free without bail.
And then you wonder why cops are fleeing to the suburbs.
Right.
And we're not for defund the police anymore. We don't understand why more police officers won't come to work here.
Right.
Well, because now you're desperate because of the crime situation in your city, and now you're calling for police, but you'll turn on them like that.
Yep.
You'll turn on the good cops like that.
Exactly.
Or you'll extrapolate out if one cop does something wrong, you'll extrapolate it out like they did in 2020 and say that racism is systemic and institutionalized in all the police departments to hunt down and kill blacks. And as we pointed out, in many of these cities, they're led by black leaders with black police chiefs.
Right.
But it didn't matter because we know that, no, if you're black and a cop, you're not black, you're blue.
Right.
Remember that one.
Yeah, and the white girls shouting in the face of the black officer, "You've betrayed your race."
Yeah. My God.
What the hell?
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Oh, the Democrats are going to go after RFK Jr. In fact, he's going to be attacked from both sides. I've seen, I think it was Federalist.com, Mark Hemingway. No, it wasn't Mark Hemingway. It was somebody else. Had a column on him go, guys, he's a liberal.
Yeah.
You know, RFK is a liberal. Yeah. Stop it. Stop this whole thing because he's taken, and number one, don't believe him in a lot of the conservative angles that he's taking because he's a lifelong liberal.
Right. Well, it's like he was, trying to connect with essentially, the whole tribal thing. It was like he was trying to co-opt another part of another tribe, by saying, well, these things and those things. Look, we can talk about the Kennedy family over the years. We could talk about JFK, and there's been those conversations. Okay, well, if he had lived, would he become more of a moderate, or would he be, because he was a moderate, would he be a conservative? Would he have changed parties? Ronald Reagan changed parties, and all these conversations. But RFK has been around RFK Jr. has been around for many years, and on those issues, you know where he stands. He's on the left. If you're paying attention, you know where he stands, and his VP pick should just wrap that up for everybody that had questions.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome to a Friday. Clean the Desk Friday.
Clean the Desk Friday.
Here we are, Easter weekend.
Yeah.
And what's in the news? You ready for this?
All right.
On Wednesday's broadcast of MSNBC's Andrea Mitchell Report, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen stated that a key plank of President Biden's agenda is to lower costs by creating incentives to dramatically improve the use of clean, green energy in the United States, and over time, this will help lower household energy costs and inflation.
Yeah? Will it now? Will it really?
So the president has indicated, and I certainly agree, that getting the cost of living down should be our number one economic priority. And he has proposed many different ways of doing this, but one important way is by lowering energy prices and diminishing the volatility. Right now, when Putin invades Russia or there are supply disruptions in the Middle East, we can see oil and energy costs skyrocketing, harming American families. Mm-hmm. And the Inflation Reduction Act is a comprehensive piece of legislation that's creating incentives to dramatically improve the use of clean energy in the United States. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something, because we got into a discussion, started last week, and we continue it this week. Does she know that she's lying?
Yeah.
We know she's lying. The statement is a lie.
Yeah.
You're not going to, green energy, as we have seen across the board, increases. Check out California's cost per kilowatt hour as compared to the national average.
Yeah.
Double.
Yep.
For electricity.
Yeah.
Pushing green energy to lower energy costs over time is a key part of fighting inflation. So when they're involved in an endeavor that will increase inflation, they tell you it's fighting inflation. And it's interesting that she uses the infrastructure and the, what do they call it, the Inflation Act?
Yeah, Inflation Reduction Act.
The Inflation Reduction Act that actually increased inflation.
Right, yeah.
That they finally had to admit, well, really, it doesn't lower inflation.
Right.
We just said it because, well, why did we say it? Because the people that vote for us, the Democrats, are complete idiots. We can sell them.
Stupid American voter.
Yeah, we can sell them anything.
The stupid American Democratic voter or Democrat voter. Yeah, it's, I do believe they know it. But I think they try and, because we asked the question, okay, but you know, behind the scenes or when they go home, how do you compartmentalize that? How do you manage that in your mind, knowing you're lying every day about all these things? I think a number of possibilities, but one of them is that they do, the fuzzy math. Well, if you were to do this and do that and do that, then that would lead to a reduction in inflation. And I think they work hard at that, trying to justify their lies probably in their own mind, or they just don't care.
So
It's
you're
one or
saying
the other.
So you're saying instead of 1 and 1 is 2, 1 and 1 is 50.
Yes, exactly. And it used to be 2, but because of inflation, it's 50. Exactly.
She knows she's lying.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Mitchell knows she's lying.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody listening know that she's lying.
Mm-hmm.
She knows that everybody knows that she's lying, and she throws it out anyway.
Well, I mean,
There is no evidence that green energy lowers prices at all.
how long is the marriage to Alan Greenspan, the former Fed chair?
Yeah, Mitchell, yeah.
So either she doesn't listen to her husband at all, or she's lying.
And that still fascinates me because we do live in different worlds.
By the way, he's 98.
My dad will be 98 in 2 weeks.
Yeah, Alan Greenspan, former Fed chair.
Yeah.
Mr. Andrea Mitchell.
But the thing that just I wonder about is what kind of family and community are you a part of that you can constantly be a pathological liar and none of your friends and family ever call you out? Because you and I have talked about this. In the culture that I come from, if you're lying, your family will tell you. Your friends will tell you. They'll say, I heard you on the air. You got that wrong, but you keep promoting it. Are you just getting it wrong or are you lying about it?
Right.
They're going, especially my best friends, they're going to say, hey, dude, stop lying, man. And my family would tell me, stop lying. Does their family, do they not tell them that? Is it really, do they all have George Costanza syndrome, Jerry? Yeah? Just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Right.
I mean, I just, that to me is a cultural thing. We talk about different cultures. And many of us come from cultures where lies, in the same country, where lies are not accepted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And your friends and family will call you out. And then you have an entirely different culture of politicians that are pathological liars each and every day. Their family knows they're pathological liars. But then again, the family that supports him has to be pathological liars themselves.
Right.
But do they ever get together and say, either does somebody in the family come out and say, look, stop lying? Or do they sit in a closed room afterwards with cigars lit and laugh and go, ha, 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 we're lying, and the idiot people that vote for us give us money and they keep voting for us, and we're lying to them, and we're making their lives work? Ah, ha, 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 ha. What is it? It's got to be one or the other.
Or what we heard from Democrats when, during the Obama years, we're okay with the lies. We're okay with the lies about health care. We're okay with the lies. It gets us to a point. It gets us from A to B. And speaking of health care, Gruber, one of the chief architects of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and came out and said it. The stupid American voter. Yeah, Democrat voter, because Republicans weren't going to be on board for that. But that's what they think of you. And I think there's, that mindset is also involved because we heard it. We had people calling, Democrats calling us saying, we're okay with the lies. We're okay with the lies about him lying about Obama, lying about gay marriage.
Yep.
He lied because, we said, look, we knew when he was running, he's pro-gay marriage, but he couldn't say it. And then he was grappling.
Yeah.
Well, it's, and then it was like, okay, you're okay with the lies, and we're okay with the lies because it gets us to where we need to be and gets things done and blah, blah, blah. So I think there's that. It's like, nope, it's required. We have to lie to people.
Because that's such an obvious lie. And then the hope was with the subsidies for electric vehicles.
Right.
That they could then go to the public and say, see how cheap electric cars are?
Right.
Well,
yeah.
when you basically have, because the electric car business, when you think about it, because it's mandated by the government, actually is a monopoly in a way. Because you're subsidizing something people would never buy and keeping an industry going and setting rules and regulations that over the next few years forces people to do it. You're talking about not just a natural occurring monopoly. You're talking about when you look at a socialist.
Yeah, right.
It'd be socialist / communist is where you're headed to monopoly, which, of course, communism is a monopoly because nobody owns private property and the companies are owned by the government. As we talked about the Green New Deal, that was the entire point. Make it so expensive that these companies can't exist. The federal government will take over, and then they will produce it once it goes bankrupt.
Well, I mean, no, you make a great point. It is, it's in the spirit of a monopoly. You're creating that because you're regulating it. You're making it eventually, and we said they have to outlaw the other behaviors. And then you have to promote the other new behavior, and you do that by throwing money at it. And then ultimately what they want to get to is what the former Transportation Secretary, Ray LaHood, and we know he was a Republican, said back in the day, and I'm sorry, but you're a liberal if you say the following, we know you don't want to be in these cars. We're going to coerce you out of these vehicles. They're and basically implying that they're a burden on the American people.
Coerce was a quote, by the way.
Yeah, coerce.
Just
we
so
use
people
that.
know that.
Yeah,
we use that because that was his word.
He used that word. And
well, the other thing you have to do though is the lie that it's going to be cheaper. We're a government monopoly, so we can subsidize
That's
it.
That's the lie that you're trying to sell people on it being cheaper.
Right. That the cost of the vehicle is simply what you pay for it, not the fact that all other taxpayers have to chip in for it. And it's a very elitist monopoly because the only people that can afford to buy an electric vehicle are the people that are well off, and they're being subsidized by everybody else who can't afford an electric vehicle. But when you create a monopoly, a government monopoly like this, a government corporate monopoly like this, you have such inefficiencies in it because you believe, well, we've got a guaranteed market. And so the cost just went through the roof to the point you saw Ford laying off people. Stellantis did earlier this week laying off people.
Yeah.
That all the lies, it's going to create more jobs. Actually, no, you're going to lose jobs in the automobile industry. That's almost now accepted across the board. Okay, yeah, we're going to lose jobs by doing it. But they're still out there promoting this will create great jobs. We're losing jobs because of this. And as we know, was it Ford that was losing $64,000 on every vehicle that they made? Every single vehicle they made, even with all the government subsidies, they're losing that kind of money. So people that are buying gasoline-powered and diesel-powered vehicles, the cost of those cars have went up to help subsidize the EVs, and they believe that's the way to a successful economy. Does anybody listening right now actually believe that that's a way? Any Democrat listening right now believe that's how an economy should run?
Right.
Or you can have a sustainable economy by doing that?
We said during the union strike, UAW strike, we said, look, there has to be consideration for the long-term viability of the domestic OEMs when it comes to EV mandates. And it wasn't long after that strike was settled that the OEMs started saying, what we meant was hybrids. I saw some more on that while I was traveling last weekend. And it was like, oh, no, hybrids are the thing. There's robust demand, but they never give numbers. And it's like, okay, we see where this is going. We know what this looks like. And by the way, Letitia James, if you want to go after, any parties for real fraud, hey, we have some names. And it is. You have to outlaw the behavior, the current behavior. You have to throw incentives and lies out there for people to be interested in these vehicles, and then and the same thing with solar power and wind power. It's all great and wonderful until a hailstorm comes through Texas, and we don't know what we're going to do now. I mean, even before you get to hailstorms, we talked about the maintenance of the solar panels, the maintenance of the wind turbines, and what it requires. And then remember the story several months ago. The wind turbine parts are, when they break down, we just bury them in the desert. What is this, a mob movie? It's insane. We'll just keep burying them. The earth is pretty deep. I mean, seriously.
I know.
This is so stupid.
But they're pushing the same thing over and over again. And the fact is, though, as Yellen is out there saying pushing green energy will lower energy costs, reality has hit.
Yeah.
And we know that's not the case.
Right.
So she's out promoting something that reality, it's not the Republicans that are debating her.
Right.
It's reality.
It is reality.
And reality is saying, well, no, it's not.
No, exactly.
It costs more.
Right.
866-98-RED-I.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Surviving and thriving as an owner-operator has just as much to do with managing costs as it does with generating revenue. Like the chief financial officer of any company, you have to be concerned about rising costs, especially without increases in revenue. Trying to reduce costs, let alone make sense of them, can be a complicated task. Understanding basic principles of operating costs can save you thousands of dollars a year. A penny saved could be $1,000 earned. Saving just 1 penny per mile over 100,000 miles driven annually will deliver $1,000 to the bottom line at the end of the year. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yes, so we had mentioned Ford. Ford's cutting 2/3 of jobs at one of its electric vehicle plants as demand for the product slows, according to the Detroit Free Press. Only 700 of the 2,100 auto workers at Ford's Rogue EV Center in Dearborn, Michigan, will remain at the plant, with 700 of the workers being transferred to a plant in Wayne, Michigan, to build Bronco and Ranger Ford models, and the other 700 are being offered reassignment or a retirement package, according to a Ford spokesperson who spoke to the Detroit Free Press. Stellantis announced last week that it would be laying off, Chrysler's parent, around 400 at its white-collar employees who work in the engineering, technology, and software due to the slowdown of EV sales compared to the volume being produced. The retirement packages being offered include a payout of $50,000 that was negotiated during the contract talks of the United Auto Workers who went on strike near the end of 2023. Well, we now know. I mean, it's common knowledge that to build an electric vehicle actually takes fewer workers than building a gasoline vehicle.
Yeah, right.
Even though they're much more expensive,
right.
As we know, it takes fewer workers to actually build it. And so when you see it across the board, that's how they were sold. Electric vehicles will be something people will love because they'll be more efficient and productive. There'll be just millions of jobs created, and it's going to be cheaper for you to operate, cheaper to buy and cheaper to operate. All of those are false.
Yeah, they're all false. And the infrastructure will be no problem in building it, and we have plenty of energy to supply.
Well, that will be the next topic coming up following the bottom of the hour.
Yeah.
Wall Street Journal with another warning, the coming electricity crisis, that, they talk about, all the AI plants and, just everything, the technology.
Oh, yeah.
Uses way more electricity than normal industry has.
Massive amounts.
And we don't have it.
Right.
We're not going to have it. We can't fulfill it. And so we're committing our own economic, as we've said, economic, energy, and national security suicide.
Yep.
Because we choose to.
Yep. All of it's a choice.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen when and where you want, in case you can't listen live overnight. All right. Now, they're saying it in a nicer way than we have. This is the editorial from the Wall Street Journal yesterday, the coming electricity crisis.
Yeah.
President Biden and the press keep raising alarms about a climate crisis that his policies can't do much about. Yet in the meantime, they're ignoring how government climate policies are contributing to a looming electric grid crisis that is more urgent and could be avoided. We have said it in different language. I think that's been a lot harsher. Are they nuts? What are they doing? It's economic, energy, and national security suicide is what they're involved in. And as they talk about the fact that they've been warning for years about an electric power shortage, as we have, and now grid regulators and utilities are ramping up the warnings. Projections for U.S. electricity demand growth over the next 5 years. Listen to this now, because of AI. Projections for U.S. electricity demand growth for the next 5 years have doubled from a year ago. The major culprit: new artificial intelligence data centers, federally subsidized manufacturing plants, and the government-driven electric vehicle transition. Georgia Power recently increased 17-fold its winter power demand forecast for 2031, citing growth in new industries such as EV and battery factories. In Ohio, they say new data centers and Intel's $20 billion planned chip plant will increase strain on the grid. Chip factories and data centers can consume 100 times more power than the typical industrial business. PJM Interconnection, which operates the wholesale power market across 13 Midwest and Northeastern states, this year doubled its 15-year annual forecast for demand growth. Its projected power demand in the region for 2029 has increased by about 10 gigawatts, almost twice as much as New York City uses in a typical day. Don't expect the power to come from New York, which is marching toward a power shortage as it shuts down nuclear and fossil fuel plants in favor of wind and solar. A new Micron chip factory in upstate New York is expected to require as much power by the 2040s as the states of New Hampshire and Vermont combined. A factory will use more power than New Hampshire and Vermont combined. Electricity demand to power data centers is projected to increase by 13 to 15% compounded annually through 2030. Yet a shortage of power is already delaying new data centers by 2 to 6 years, according to the commercial real estate firm CBRE Group. It is also driving big tech companies into the energy business. Amazon this month struck a $650 million deal to buy a data center in Pennsylvania powered by an on-site 2.5 gigawatt nuclear plant. They got their own nuclear plant for the factory.
No. Okay.
Data centers, like manufacturing plants, require reliable power around the clock year-round, which wind and solar do not provide. Businesses cannot afford to wait for batteries to become cost effective. Building transmission lines, something that you and I talked about a long time ago. Building transmission lines to connect distant renewables to the grid typically takes 10 to 12 years. We talk about the fact because you've got to spread it out so far, you're building a massively larger grid.
Yeah.
Than you actually need if you just had it,
Right.
Power produced, as we have power produced in plants right now,
Right.
is, very small acreage. Produces a ton of power when you talk about traditional energy. Because of these challenges, Obama Energy Secretary, this is back when he was last week, predicted that utilities will ultimately have to rely more on gas, coal, and nuclear plants to support surging demand. We're not going to build 100 gigawatts of new renewables in a few years. No kidding.
We've been saying it. It's what would need to be done, and this adds more to it. This adds more to what we have been saying, essentially. The ramping up of the mining of materials, the energy needed to provide for all of this has never been done in the history of the world. It's never been done. It's impossible to get it done. The mandates being put out there by people who won't be in office when the mandates hit are not sustainable. They're not reachable. They're not. You can't be compliant on these mandates. There's just no way. I don't know what California looks like in 2035, by 2035. But the closer you get to these mandates, the more industry, residents are going to scream, and something will have to change. And inevitably, they'll do what? Well, we'll kick the can down the road.
So they say, meanwhile, the Inflation Reduction Act's huge renewable subsidies makes it harder for fossil fuel and nuclear plants to compete in the wholesale power markets. The cost of producing power from solar and wind is roughly the same as from natural gas, but IRA tax credits can offset up to 50% of the cost of renewable operators. Well, solar and wind only compete because of subsidies.
Yeah.
Because if you're not consistent, the cost goes up because you need to have redundant power.
Right.
And because base load plants can't turn a profit operating only when needed to back up renewables, so they are closing. This was the main culprit for Texas's week-long power outage in February of 21 and the eastern U.S.'s rolling blackouts during Christmas of 2022. The media will discover this problem eventually, though not this year, if it might call into question Mr. Biden's climate agenda. Perhaps they'll notice when more blackouts arrive. They've been putting out the warning. We've been putting out the warning. Electrical engineers have been putting out the warning.
No, it goes beyond crisis. Because if we reach the point where they go forward anyway, it will be failure. It won't be crisis. Crisis implies that there's a solution. There won't be a solution other than to abandon the entire thing. And so, when I say that, California will, I believe they will kick the can down the road, that future governors and or lawmakers will come in that state and say, okay, we aren't able to reach it by 2035, but we still believe we're on target to reach it by 2045. Because they're not going to be able to abandon their own agenda. They can't say, look, this is not doable in our lifetime, which would be the truth. They're just going to have to say, okay, we'll give it 5 more years, 10 more years, whatever number they want. And these are arbitrary numbers. 2035 is an arbitrary number. They didn't sit and look at this. They didn't have a study that looked at this in California and said, look, we know that we can have enough cars, that the OEMs can build enough cars, they can mine the materials. We know that we'll have the infrastructure in place. All of this will happen by 2035. No, they came in with a heavy-handed approach, arbitrary number or date, and said, boom, 2035.
Well, yeah, you can do a lot if cost doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why California, with their electricity prices, have come up with that extra surcharge.
The surcharge.
It doesn't matter how much electricity you use. If you make over this amount, we're going to charge you this more a month. And so it's like, okay, let's go after the people with, by the way, it's not how much electricity you use. Now utilities, the plan is in California for utilities to be able to look at your income, and you're charged a surcharge by your income so they can tax the rich for socialized electricity for everybody.
Mm-hmm. They'll say they're taxing the rich, but it starts at $25,000 a year.
Yeah, that's
which
true.
in California
the lower
is basically homeless, or someone who's 16 living at home with mom and dad, because $25,000 a year will get you basically nothing in California.
Anywhere you go, you plug in your USB cord to charge your phone, and there'll be like a $10 surcharge.
Yeah, right.
I'm being serious.
No, seriously. Yeah.
That's going to when will?
Yeah.
Because remember, now you go to the airport and you just plug in your phone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Remember, just a couple of years ago, they had those stations where you had to pay for it. Expect that to come back again.
Oh yeah.
You want to charge for an hour? It's going to cost you $10.
Mm-hmm.
The cost of electricity is getting so prohibitive, especially in states like California, where it's double the national average and over double of what we have right here in Texas right now.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, you know it's coming. And then I saw this one yesterday. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has backed constructing a national smart grid, allowing utility companies to remotely control America's personal devices, even shutting off hot water if they deem it necessary. In a 2011 video reviewed by the New York Post, the environmental lawyer argued that the $250 billion grid would eliminate peak demand periods and insisted that consumers would not care about their devices being rendered inoperable for 15 minutes at a time.
Mm-hmm.
The smart grid would allow utilities to send signals through the line to turn off the 100 water boilers in 1 million homes for 15 minutes in order to avoid peak demand that is the most expensive part of our electrical system, Kennedy said in remarks to San Francisco's Commonwealth Club in California. So it's only going to be 15 minutes. So, that's what, that's all it's going to be.
Right, yeah.
If you eliminate a peak, you have enough natural gas in our country to power the entire U.S. passenger car fleet, he went on, adding that the grid could send a signal to turn off all the electric toothbrush rechargers, to turn off your swimming pool recirculator, all of those things.
Uh-huh.
No.
Nope. Yeah, but which requires everyone to have a smart home.
Yeah.
That's what you would have to do in order to control their usage. You would have to have a smart home, and it would start with the smart thermostats, that you would have to have a smart thermostat. The others, any other type of thermostat would be outlawed. You have to outlaw behavior to get all of this done.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane. And we have all the energy we need.
Yep.
Right here in the ground. All we have to do is go at it. In fact, a long-term energy, can you imagine creating another unicorn here, by the way? If we came in and created, through legislation, a long-term energy plan, we're going to go after everything that we've got, natural gas, oil, all of it. Building nuke facilities, but that's different because the NIMBY effect is that's where you're going to run into the problem on that one. That's the brick wall on that one. But all of that, if we sent just passing that legislation, would send the world into this, it would be incredible. Then everybody would be lined up, manufacturers would be lined up going, how soon can we move to America? How soon can we get to the U.S.?
Well, if you don't want jobs to move to China, don't continue this insanity.
Exactly.
Because jobs will move to China.
Yep, expensive energy. And we've been saying this for how long now? The manufacturers need cheap and plentiful energy. They need manpower, but they need cheap and plentiful energy. And if the more expensive it gets to manufacture based on energy, the more inclined they are to go somewhere else, and they'll do just that.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, just reading this here, Stephan A. Smith says opportunities are the only thing that should be equal, not outcome. What world am I in?
I'm sorry, is it that Stephan A. Smith? Is there another Stephan A.
It's
Smith?
that Stephan A. Smith, yeah.
Huh?
Opportunities are the only thing that should be equal, not outcome. Did I have some of the beers in the refrigerator, and I don't remember drinking them?
It just sounds odd.
What are these chocolate chip cookies I'm eating here? Is something else in them? Really? Am I hallucinating here? Stephan A. Smith says opportunities are the only thing that should be equal, not outcome.
Yeah.
Where am I?
I don't know. My wife made brownies the other night, but I don't.
And the whole
I don't think they were that kind of brownies.
The whole squatter thing going on nationwide right now.
Man, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. Florida signing into law that will take effect later this summer that outlaws squatting. Why do we need laws to outlaw something that should be already against the law?
Right.
What?
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All of a sudden, the whole squatter thing became huge this week, didn't it?
It's really playing a lot on social media and in the news about a number of things. I know that Fox News the other day, I was listening in my truck while I was traveling, and Fox News had a story. Well, they had an expert squatter remover.
Oh, I saw that.
That sounds like it's something you buy in a squirt bottle at, hey, are we out of squatter remover? Hun, do we need that? On that one aisle in the grocery store. But it's a lot of this, and it varies by state what squatters' rights are. And also what you need to do to evict squatters. But for the most part, most every state has squatters' rights, but they don't apply in the way that some of the stories in social media have been implying. I think that's where a lot of people are getting, hey, whoa, this is, gathering a lot of attention. And it's like, I can't believe they can just do that. Well,
in Texas, you can't.
There's squatters' rights in Texas. I would advise you not try that in Texas. If you're talking about doing what has been playing on social media, and that's just breaking into the home while somebody's away. New York Post had a story, and I don't know all the details of it. And I think there's always a lot of details that are left out, even when you read the entire story. Of a lady who went to take care of her mom or something in another state, and squatters broke in. Well, that's just a home invasion. That's right. Not, that person doesn't have squatters' rights.
Well, then why did she try to go through the eviction process
Yeah.
instead of just calling the cops? Because you just told me you've got to live in the home for 10 years.
Yeah, it's got to, in Texas, you've got to show that you've lived there for 10 years. And let me see here also, and it's, by the way, they call it adverse possession. Doesn't that sound like a liberal description of stealing somebody's property? Now, if you have lived in the property, many states, it requires you to have, if you're the squatter, not the squattee. If you're the squatter, you have to have lived in the state or in the home, rather, in the property, on the property for a period of time. In Texas, it's 10 years. There's, for many states, there has to be documentation that you have lived there that long. Some states, it's only 7 years. Also, that you have to pay taxes on the property for a certain period of time. That applies in many states, too.
Or the title in your name.
Yeah. And so if, but the squatter's rights only goes to the point of, okay, does the owner of the property have a right to evict you immediately? Well, the first thing that lawyers will tell you is, someone breaks into your home and tries to claim squatter's rights, call the police. Because that's not going to apply in any state where they just break in and they can occupy the home. Call the cops. That's called in my book, that's called a home invasion. And I don't recommend you do that in my home or most homes in Texas. We have constitutional carry, and that would be a bad idea to just try and walk in and occupy somebody's home because you think you're going to get rights to it.
You look at this one because National Review had the story of the Seattle area landlord that rented to a guy who's known as a serial squatter.
Yeah.
But it was a $2 million house.
Right.
And so he paid the first month's rent, never paid it anything again. And we're closing in on 2 years that he cannot evict him because a nonprofit in Seattle is doing everything they can to ensure that the squatter can stay there.
Right.
So signed the signed the lease in signed the lease in April of 2022 for a year. Paid the first month of the lease. Didn't pay again. The lease expired in 2023.
Right.
We're now to April 24 in a couple of days and still not removed. Kim paid rent for the first month of the lease agreement, which expired in April of 23, has since not made another payment. Instead, he's been receiving outside financing from a legal group sympathetic to his situation.
Right, yeah.
Kim presently owes the landlord more than $50,000 in unpaid rent. The landlord's total financial losses are upwards of $80,000 when legal fees are taken into consideration. This isn't the first time that the serial squatter has pulled the similar stunt. According to National Review, he has also refused to pay thousands of dollars in back rent to other homeowners in the Seattle area. Many individuals are rightfully questioning the fairness of a system where non-paying squatters can reside in Bellevue homes for extended periods without consequences. The landlord told National Review that they receive access to facilities and even free legal representation, essentially getting a free pass while hardworking citizens bear the financial burdens of these injustices. So that's where you rent. But I know, because I know a lot of people in the apartment rental industry, that there's a process. If when your lease is up, you're going to stay. No, and if you decide to stay in or you don't pay your rent, normally I think the maximum, I remember the manager of my complex was telling me, usually 2 to 3 months and they're out.
I've been involved and owned a number of rental properties going back since 1990. ish, somewhere around there, we started buying rentals, and all of them single-family homes, no apartments. But and now it's a big corporate game on multifamily units, apartment complexes, and it becomes very different. And it applies to single-family homes or it doesn't matter. Eviction, the renters' rights are different than squatters' rights. So if you are a holdover renter that has not paid you're not current on your rent, they can move, but they have to move through the legal system to evict you.
I wonder what the specifics are here in Seattle, where this person paid 1 month's rent. The actual lease ended in April of 23, only paid 1 month out of the 12, and still the homeowner can't kick them out.
Well, and
what's the court cases?
In most states, I don't know if this is the case in this story. If they have signed a lease and they have paid any amount of rent, even just 1 month, they are considered a tenant. So there are tenants' rights. And they are considered a holdover. Now, the eviction process, again, is different in every state, and it's different between the types of individuals who are occupying this property. Squatters typically, over the years, it's nothing new. By the way, it's been going on for a long, long time, and in many cases, it's abandoned properties, right? Like a property that's been foreclosed upon or abandoned for whatever reason. Rosario Dawson, the actress, actually talked about growing up when she grew up. When she was growing up, her family, for a period of time, lived in an abandoned building. And I thought that was a very interesting story that she had, but that would be an example of, a squatter. But it also requires you to have, in many states, again, certain documentation, and you have to show that you have occupied that space for a minimum period of time. There is a minimum period of time in each state. Some websites are saying in Texas it can be 3 to 10 years, depending on the situation. But it's not, hey, they broke in while you were on vacation. If you believe it to be, by the way, if you believe it to be a dangerous situation, you should call the police and let them handle that. If someone's broken into your home, you get home, someone's in that home. It's best not to go in that home.
Oh, yeah.
And don't approach the people that are in the home. You call the police and you want to report a break-in. And start there. Let the police handle that situation. But it becomes maddening when you think about, look, again, and I always told my tenants this. I always made them aware there are tenants' rights. I always said those words to them. Because you do have tenants. I'm going to be a fair landlord. Mm-hmm. I'm going to abide by the law. I may try and change certain laws, as a voter or supporter of any legislator or legislative body that governs the area in which I live. I may support certain laws that favor me. That's not out of the ordinary for anyone. But I'm going to abide by the law. And, and people who are tenants should know that, and it varies state by state, that you have tenants' rights. But that's different than squatters who are occupying something that they really have no right to. Now, tenants who are holdover tenants who are not current on their rent don't have a right to that property, but the process takes longer. Going through the court to evict them, the eviction process takes longer. You can't just go in there, like in many states, if not most every state, you can't just go in there and change the locks on them. Now, it also varies with commercial property. Commercial property, which is different than residential, has different laws in each state, but it's treated differently. And like in commercial properties, they can do a lockout. If you if you occupy if you rent commercial property and you're not current, they can come in and give you a notice and say, here, we're going to lock you out. I know that in our state, that doesn't apply on residential property, but you do have, as an owner, as a landlord, you have your own rights that are afforded by law, but you just have to go through the system to evict these tenants.
In Bellevue, Washington, if it's taking 2 years, there's something seriously wrong with the process, and it comes down to, as we all know, it's your property, and as you said, you may have tenants' rights, but the fact is, once you stop paying, and it's not hard to figure out if you're getting paid or not, because you pay by check, and so you have that canceled check. You have to be able to prove that you paid the rent. Once you can't, you should be out in a couple of months.
Yeah, no,
you
don't have a right to stay in that property, but you have a right to the legal process which people often take advantage of and know. It happened during the subprime mortgage mess to a great extent, because when it comes to foreclosure, that's even longer of a process. When the lending institution has to go through the foreclosure process, and then, if that leads to eventually eviction. I had someone tell me that their family member or their family member lived next door to another person who actually stayed in the property for over a year during the foreclosure process and never paid a dime. Never paid a dime. So, it varies again by state, but I think a lot of this on social media is made into something, and they call it squatters. It doesn't necessarily apply, but it is interesting to look at it, how these stories are playing out. But it's really been a big deal, one of the big stories that's circulating, especially on social media.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. A Democrat giving advice to Democrats as to where they need to go in the future to continue winning elections. It's really, really interesting, especially the conclusion that we came to.
Yeah.
About what a Democrat actually has to do in the future, the Democrat Party needs to do in order to win.
Right.
So we'll have that coming up here in a little bit.
Yeah. Wow.
It's funny.
They have a plan.
Well, they don't. I mean,
they're being given a plan.
It's from the liberal patriot Roy Teixeira, who has really rejected where the Democratic Party has gone, even though he's a Democrat. And so it's
But I think it's a solid playbook. I mean, if they wanted to win, maybe.
All right, I'll tell you now. Okay.
Yeah. All right. We got.
I just didn't think we had time. We have time.
We got time.
All right. So he wrote a thing. The 3 things Democrats have to do. Here's a very short version of the plan. Democrats must move to the center on cultural issues. Democrats must promote an abundance agenda. Now, an abundance agenda means more stuff, more growth, more opportunity. Being able to easily afford life's necessities with a lot left over. In short, nicer, genuinely more comfortable lives for all. So Democrats must move to the center on cultural issues. Democrats must promote an abundance agenda. Democrats must embrace patriotism and liberal nationalism. Well, I looked at that and I said, well, what Roy is telling you is for Democrats to win in the future, they have to become Trump on the issues.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
Democrats have to stop being Democrats. That's basically the playbook. But if they did, it would work. Yeah, no. Okay, here's a question. With as far as we've gone, or they've gone, the Democratic Party, Because typically not typically, but it used to be, back in our day, they would go to the center, right?
Mm-hmm.
After the convention, you move to the center, or after the primary, you move to the center. The party as a whole, are we beyond the point of no return? The Democratic Party, I'll just throw this theory out, might not ever be able to. I know they're not willing to. But if they carved out the far left and the activists and, put them back on the picket line, down the street on the corner, where activists and protesters used to be, and didn't let them carry the party or lead the party, would anybody buy them coming back to the center? They used to lie to sound centered.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they had to do. That's the point, is that I don't think they could get away with the lying anymore. That oh no, we're for this again and we're promoting this again. I don't think they can get. Now there are some that were on the left. We've talked about them that now know that this has gone way too far. But I mean, as a party, politically, I think we're probably at that point of no return. I don't think people would buy it if they tried to move to the center.
Well, look at Biden and Israel. He's trying to ride the tightrope. Is he winning either side?
No. Protesters are in full force. Right. He's a war criminal.
Think about this. He's betrayed and abandoned the American hostages there.
Right.
And it didn't matter. The pro-terrorist protesters are out there.
Yeah.
They were yesterday in New York.
Yep.
Hundreds of them.
Right.
More listeners, not now than now, depending on when now is. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I was reading a couple of articles where Biden in the White House has really dropped the term Bidenomics again. He used it once, but basically they've dropped it the last couple of weeks again. You don't hear them saying Bidenomics.
I think there's a good chance that because he's so defiant, he's pushing back on it. He likes the word Bidenomics.
I thought the same thing.
That he's proud of the word. Remember when the whole Obamacare thing, the left said, oh, you can't do that. You can't call it Obamacare. It's racist. And then Obama stepped in and said, no. That's to me, I'm okay with it. It's, I think it's a great accomplishment. I'm okay with Obamacare. And I heard Biden the other day, while we were talking about it. I think we did play the cut where he called it the ACA. They won't even say Affordable Care Act anymore. They just say the ACA. But I think Bidenomics with Joe Biden, look, his family's doing well, very well. Tens of millions of dollars.
$24 million.
So, they're the actual Biden and Bidenomics, oh, man, they're rich. They're wealthy. I didn't know influence was so expensive, but apparently it is. I'm sorry, illusion of influence. Which is it? Either one. They're both. And probably, I would say both have gone up in price due to inflation. If you're Hunter, you're probably already telling foreign entities that. Listen, it's inflation. It's going to cost you. And, of course, now, since he's president, then you got to price that in, too. They can't sell that. Politically, it's horrible. Because families are underwater. And when you label it Bidenomics, everyone's going, yeah, we know. We know what caused this. We know who caused this. We know why we're here. We know the person behind it. We know the party behind it. And you don't want that out there. But I think Joe Biden thinks it's great. I think he looks at it and says, no. Basically, anything with his name on it. He can't get it. Look, this is the same campaign and White House that's trying to make you believe that Donald Trump is the guy campaigning from his basement. They're trying to make you believe, that Donald Trump isn't out there in full force, the guy that puts his name on everything. We talked about this the other day. So, Joe Biden, he's got his own mindset. This is why it doesn't matter even if he's got a script in front of him, a teleprompter, cards, whatever, doesn't matter. He's going to go off script, he's going to go off the prompter, and he's going to talk about whatever he wants to talk about. And if Joe wants to use, okay, so here's the question. What's the over-under? I probably shouldn't be gambling on Good Friday. I'm just asking a question, though. I'm not actually laying any money.
Go ahead.
What's the over-under on him himself using that number or that term, Bidenomics, and how many times between now and November 5th? I'm going to say 10 times.
Again, because of his cognitive abilities, who knows whether he's stubborn and just wanted to say it because they're saying, look, you need to drop Bidenomics.
Right.
It just isn't working. Don't say Bidenomics.
It's hurting you, yeah.
But he said it once. I was reading an article saying somebody's been paying attention. They're actually, okay, he's not saying it. Let's check every speech and everything that he does. And they said just one time this week, but basically it's been dropped by everybody else.
Right.
That you can't do it. It's too toxic.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but that's humorous as they keep attempting to sell to you that the economy's doing great.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still out there telling you the economy's doing great and how wonderful it is, but the public really doesn't. The public hasn't bought it for the longest time.
No.
I thought what was interesting was, and we knew this, and we had, if you've been listening to the show, you know this because we told you this. When the impeachment inquiry started, even when people would call us and say, well, they need to start the impeachment proceedings. And we went, they're not going to attempt to impeach Biden. No. We don't see that happening. And it became clear the other day that when Comer said, well, no, he sent a letter and then he was questioned. He said, well, no, we never said we were going to impeach. An impeachment inquiry is to get facts. Jonathan Turley, as you know, he backs that up. He says, no, an impeachment inquiry does not, lead to an impeachment unless you want it to.
Right.
And we always stated, no, what they want is the drip, 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 drip. That's what they want. Bad news coming out. For example, Comer said now they would like Biden to voluntarily come before Congress and answer 4 questions. The questions are, you have asserted your family has not made money in China. However, the committee has identified approximately $10 million originating from China connected to influence peddling. Answer the question. You have asserted that your pressure in Ukraine in 2015 to fire an official government official investigating a company in which your son had a financial interest was wholly in line with U.S. policy. The committee has received bank records showing that your son was paid $1 million per year for his position on the board of the Ukrainian company Burisma until you left public office, and then his salary was cut in half. Additionally, the committee has been obstructed by the White House regarding information necessary to evaluate action you took regarding the firing of the Ukrainian government official. He needs to put it in. He says, these are the questions I'm providing. Well, they're not questions or statements.
Right. Yeah.
Comer wrote, you've asserted that you never talked business with your family's business associates. However, the committee has received testimony that you, in fact, regularly join meetings by speakerphone, including with certain Russian individuals with whom your son did business. The committee has identified several instances in which your involvement aligned with your family receiving money originating from Russia. And 4, the committee has identified and successfully traced money from foreign transactions, including from China, to your own bank accounts. Certain checks have been described as loan repayments. However, the person who provided you free bookkeeping during your time as vice president and your son's business partner did not remember any evidence of a loan from your accounts. When asked to provide evidence of the underlying loans. The White House refused, regardless of whether you have been paid or repaid using funds from these transactions. The committee has gathered evidence showing that your family only received these funds because of your participation in meetings with their business associates. Indeed, the Biden family business associates, in fact, became your business associates when it is through their entities and your efforts that you were able to be paid or repaid. So there you go. There's what he put out there. So that's a way for the Republicans to line up again. Here's what we're claiming he did. Then when the White House refuses and said we won't do it, that becomes more news, especially on social media. Here are the things the Republicans, the questions they had for him to answer. He won't answer any of them. That's another drip, drip, drip. Bringing Mayorkas, the fact that the House is going to bring the article of impeachment to Mayorkas. Well, what they want is they want everybody from the Democrat side because Mayorkas is the one that you can get big time because he said the border was secure. And you put him in front of a lawyer saying, the day you said the border was secure, here's what it looked like. How could you call the border secure?
Right.
That's a lie.
Right.
And so those are the things that they want. Now, will the Senate accept it? They're going to walk them over, though, but that's the whole point. On illegal immigration, that's the number one issue.
Yeah.
Illegal immigration.
Right.
And what you want to do is you want to get the guy. You're not going to be able to get the president on that, but you get the guy who worked for the president, Mayorkas, who comes off as, in my opinion, I would want him in front defending his secure comments because he comes across as very slimy.
Yeah.
He just does.
Yeah.
And so you want to do that. All of this is based on facts that the facts are very bothersome to the American public, but the goal of the Republicans is throughout the summer, into September, into October, every single day, you're hit with something else, as well as the economy. But on immigration here, you want to pound it. And then on the fact that the president is corrupt, you want that continue to be drip, drip, drip. And then you want to go and say, we're putting out criminal referrals against whom will be interesting to see. And then you continue to say the Biden Justice Department will not do anything about it, yet they went after Trump. Yeah, and that's what you want to do. That's the goal. And so when they said it the other day, when Comer put out that email to the fundraisers, the goal is to not impeachment because we're never going to get through the Senate.
Right.
You need too many votes to do it, and Democrats won't vote for it. We're going to put through the criminal referrals. Well, the goal has always been drip, 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 corrupt, 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 lie, point out lies, 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 because this is an election where I still believe that you're not going to see major movement till a month before. Things have been so bad that people that will say that are saying, I don't know right now, when they're hurting so bad. And then, as we've talked about, the two things Americans still hate about politicians is taking bribes and influence peddling. Not paying their taxes and influence peddling. You got to go with this all the way to the election, and I believe that's what they're doing. So when Democrats say they're doing it just for politics, well, yeah, you're right, but you say just for politics as if that's wrong. No, politically speaking, bringing up something like this to show the corruption of a president is good politics.
Well, because it would be horrible politics for the GOP if none of it were true.
Right.
If they were bringing things up and then it was disproven time and time again. But that's not the case. If they're bringing things up that are true, knowing that they're not going to get this through the Senate in terms of removal, a conviction, you're not going to move on impeachment because it gets you nowhere. What you move on is any criminal referrals, but telling the story. That's what it comes down to. You got to tell the story. You got to lay everything out for the American people in time for them to make a choice based on that information.
And then you run major ads stating that point, the two-tier system of justice, the criminal referrals against Biden. Here's what he did. Took money from China. It went into his bank accounts. You run ads on that constantly because that's something that's very easily understood. And I still believe that if there's going to be a shift towards Trump especially, I think you're going to see it like you did in 2016.
Yeah.
I really do.
Right. In those last weeks.
Because we're under circumstances where we have not been since I've been alive.
Right. Yeah.
With inflation and everything else going on, because reality is hit on so many different issues out there.
Especially with basically two incumbents running against each other, and their track record as presidents is right there for you to measure.
And I still believe they should campaign and saying the Democrats can't solve any of the problems because the Democrats cause the problems. Just electing us, we're not going to cause the problem. You win right there.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have to do anything
Yeah.
because our goal is not to commit economic, energy, and national security suicide.
Right.
We don't want to hurt the United States.
Right.
They do.
Yep.
They can't fix it because they caused it.
Right.
Oh, I like that, by the way. I like that one right there.
Mm-hmm.
They can't fix it because they caused it.
Yep.
You like that? Would that be one that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely.
I'd workshop that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'd do focus groups on that one.
Right.
I think that would work.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Coming up, a religious freedom fight. We'll have this for you.
All right.
Also, we had talked about squatters before in this story. California elite enrage after squatters invade $5 million home in LeBron James and Jennifer Lopez's luxury neighborhood.
Oh. Uh-oh.
Beverly Grove is home to the elite in California, A-list celebrities. That was until squatters invaded in October, and locals complaining about them allegedly throwing wild parties with cocaine and orgies.
Wow, okay.
One of the neighbors got in touch with LeBron James' house manager. They were told James was very concerned about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know the details of the squatting there.
Right.
But it's just now.
But the house was so big, it took them 4 months to discover it. The people were actually home. What's that noise? You hear noise? Is that music? Yeah, it took them a long time.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Seriously, am I high? I mean, something's going on here.
If you have to ask, I'll just leave it there. Let's let that float out there.
Well, because some of the things this week, it's like, no,
Yeah.
I can't be in a regular state of mind. I'm off. I'm off somewhere into some type of bizarro hallucination or something. And here's the latest one.
Okay.
Stephan A Smith, an ESPN commentator known for his hot takes on sports and politics, sounded off on the idea that many Americans, including those in politics, expect equality of outcome rather than opportunity. During an appearance on a podcast, He called on Americans to accept the fact that people who produce more ultimately end up more successful than those who don't, end of quote. He went on to observe, quote, "We just have too many people in this world, especially on Capitol Hill as well, that want to give this impression or want to literally go about the business of changing that and making things equal. The only thing that should be equal is opportunities, but what you receive is from your level of production, and that is on you."
When did he get fired from ESPN?
Now you understand why I started this segment going, am I high?
Yeah.
Really? What's going on? He said, one of the things that I have a problem with when I look at things that are transparent in this country, you can't, in the same breath, talk about capitalism, talk about how it's equal opportunity that we want, but everybody doesn't deserve the same. It's about your level of production. There are some people are high-end earners, some people are high-level producers and stuff, and they're getting treated. They might earn more than anybody more than somebody that just doesn't have the skill set. That's the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
By contrast, the commentator argued that there are a lot of people here that want to act as if, you know what? We're after a different culture. We want everything to be the same for everybody. To those people, he declared, "You're lying. You're lying."
Wow.
Then he recalled his mother's humble origins. "I grew up in the streets of Queens, New York. My mother was on welfare for a little while, and it killed her. It killed her to be on welfare."
Yeah.
She was sick to her stomach that we had to get government cheese and bread and all that stuff, and she got the hell off it as soon as she possibly could. And I know that when she sent me out there to work, she didn't send me out there to be just like anybody. She sent me out there to be the best that I can be. Why? So that I can earn more for myself than the average person. And most people in a capitalist society believe in that. Where did the brain of Milton Friedman all of a sudden invade Stephan A Smith? All right, I'm not going to do that.
What?
He's right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say that it isn't, because that is him. I'm not going to joke about this. I could, but because it's like, really? He's right. That's the way it works in the real world. And the host of the podcast was saying, yeah, but people don't want it to be that way. People want it to be differently. Well, then there's no incentive for anybody. There's no incentive for anybody to be great if everybody is treated the same. If equality of outcome is the goal, then you're not going to have a good outcome.
Well, we talked about the show Star Trek.
Yeah.
Where there was no money. That's never going to happen. Yeah. It's because the money is the value that basically it represents the value of your work, your experience, your training. And so does rank. So if there's no money, there's no rank. Captain Kirk is just James T. Kirk.
Yeah, there was this episode where they were talking about the fact that they've moved beyond that to a greater morality where there really isn't money. We don't assign values to things. And immediately, I remember was that Picard who said that, or was that the second Star Trek or the first one?
Yeah, I thought it was.
Remember. I thought it was from the Next Generation.
Yeah, I think it was actually.
It was from Star Trek, the Socialist Generation.
Yeah, exactly.
And you and I'll never forget, had the same reaction to it when we discussed it one day. It was like, yeah, I remember that too. And it was like, what are you talking about? everything, when you talk about, and I read an interesting article one time that talked about, non-capitalist countries where, you ask somebody what something's worth, they don't know what things are worth. They say in a capitalist society, everything is assigned a worth. Everything.
Right. Right.
Everything has a worth, and it's easy to find out what the worth of that is.
Yep.
Why? Because certain things have certain values because people want them.
Yeah. Right.
And so everything is assigned a value. But he went on to say, Smith went on, and this is true, when you have folks walking around like everybody is supposed to be the same, that's nonsense. You're lying to the American public. You're lying to yourself. It's not true. And in the end, people who produce more ultimately end up more successful than those who don't.
Well,
he could scream and say that, and I will handle that from Stephan A. Smith.
yeah, I think that's what's missing. The screaming. So what has changed? I don't think it's
reality.
I don't think it's feedback, from the audience, from his audience. It has to be reality. I don't expect that Stephan A. Smith is going conservative, but man, this is progress.
Well, one of the first paths to capitalism, isn't it what you earn, property rights, what you earn is yours, and therefore the incentive to acquire wealth is the ability to acquire wealth by working harder and being more innovative than the next person. That actually,
Yeah, right.
that's a major tenet of capitalism.
Right.
But think about it, Steve. What a week it's been. That's why I'm like, where am I? Have I been drinking the beer out of the refrigerator that's in there now? It's like, what's going on? Stephan A. Smith, you had The View that couldn't argue with the author yesterday or 2 days ago, who was talking about the fact, no, if we want to get rid of racism, you got to get rid of race. What are you talking about? We must acknowledge everybody's race. We must. And he's like, nope. The only way you get out of it is by saying race doesn't matter. There is no race. There are only humans. That's how you get rid of it. That our obsession with race, and as you know, we've been saying this for the longest time, the obsession with race is the left's attempt to create forever victims.
Yep. I mean, which has been in place for decades. This is something they've been building toward. They need those victims every day. They need new victims so they can go out and pretend to champion for them. But eventually you run out. Okay, here's my question. Because we talked years ago about eventually you get down to what? The individual. When you start dividing into more and more subgroups, you're down to the individual being his or her own subgroup. Well, when it gets down to the individual, then what starts to happen? Well, if you're talking about the individual and everybody else is, not me, well then, okay, now we can start that conversation over again. And people start looking at it differently, going, well, wait a minute. Nobody's actually in it for me. Nobody's actually going to be my hero or my savior, my, leader. They're going to be, it's going to take me. I'm going to have to get me out of this. Think about what Stephan A. Smith just spelled out here with his mom. He said it killed her to be on welfare. Because it's not good. Because I would think that and we've often heard this, that the thought is there that, man, if I'm in this place for too long, it will be harder to get out of this situation. I've got to get myself out of, because you feel like it's a trap. That doesn't, nothing applies to all, but I would have to believe that is the case, and that it did. I believe him when he says it killed his mom to be on welfare. And it's a horrible situation for anybody to be in. You want, and then you want what? You want that value given to your work, your blood, your sweat, tears, your everything you put in to your work, whether it's manual labor or any type of effort, whatever type of work you're doing. We've gotten to where the left is, saying, all right, then, this whole idea of equal outcome based on your existence. Because you exist, you deserve this. Well, this applies to what the left is doing right now, which includes everything like this massive increase in minimum wage. Well, they deserve a living wage. Well, the minimum wage was never designed to be a living wage. Minimum wage was a training wage to get to a point where you could, based on your experience, then excel and get above minimum wage and then far beyond minimum wage. And that's the idea, but it has to be earned. And that's the key word that we've talked about, where the left says the rich have something or they have this wealth. Well, they don't have the wealth. They earned the wealth.
When you talk about Stephan A. Smith's mom, I mean, I think she grew up in the culture that many of us grew up in, which is working and earning your own money is a huge sign of people that have been educated in that culture, that you control your life.
Yeah.
When somebody is giving you something and you're not earning it, there's always been, for me, there would be an extremely uncomfortable position to be in. It's the culture that I grew up in, that part of being an adult is taking care of yourself, but also the fact that you wish to work. And we've explained many times, people ask me, what's capitalism about? And I'm like, capitalism about you going out and working and being innovative and being the best you can be to acquire wealth, live under your means for a significant period of time, but you acquire wealth. And once you have that wealth, once that wealth is there, you control your life and nobody else does.
Well,
if somebody's always giving you money, just the minimum sustenance to survive, where you can't save, but you have the minimal sustenance to survive, then what's the purpose of living?
Well, that's it. And the word handout has always been, in my generation, has always been a negative word. Hey, man, I don't need it. I don't want any handouts. I don't need any handouts. And that's the way people will approach it. And then you'll hear this, well, but that's your pride talking. Yes, it is, because there is pride that comes with earning something. There is a pride that you can't match after a hard day's work, where you say, I put in my time, I put in my work, and today I learned something more that's going to get me to a better place eventually. That's what it's all about. Of course it's about pride.
And when you talk about, I know the some of the private charities that I work with, and I know you too, that the money that is raised and that you give is used to get people back on their feet.
Right.
And if there are things, look, we're going to help you here, we're going to help you here, but there's an expectation that you get to here, then you don't view it, the person that's giving, as money that's just being burned, and neither does the person receiving the money. They know this is the path to get somewhere. So in essence, the charity is about the conditions of making it so a human being can be self-sufficient, productive, have pride in the fact that, they have accomplished something, and then they are on the path to earning money, saving money, and then no one controls their life. Because even when you give the money to them with conditions, you're setting the condition. And in the culture that I'm from, you're from, Stephan A. Smith's mom from that culture, and apparently Stephan A Smith too, is the goal is to become good, save, then you control your life. You want freedom. Freedom is capital that you've saved,
Right.
and you put away, and then nobody controls you.
Right.
You get to decide what direction you go in your life.
Yep.
And that's what capitalism is really about.
Right. Yep.
It's not about buying stuff.
Nope.
I mean, it is, but it isn't the only reason. The other reason is having that wealth so you can decide and you can experience the opportunity that freedom gives you. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on compliance, safety, accountability. Compliance, Safety, Accountability, or CSA, is the FMCSA Safety, Compliance, and Enforcement Program. Its goal is to hold motor carriers and drivers accountable for highway safety and to reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities on our roads. CSA does this by assessing the safety performance of motor carriers and drivers based on data collected during roadside inspections, crash reports, and FMCSA investigations. Based on the data that is compiled, motor carriers are assigned a score. The carrier is then grouped with other carriers who have had a similar number of safety events. Carrier scores within the group are then ranked to determine intervention priority. Low scores are better, so carriers with the highest scores are those that are most likely to be targeted for intervention by the FMCSA. Interventions range in severity and may include warning letters, roadside, off-site, or on-site inspections, civil penalties, or operation out-of-service orders. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, following the bottom of the hour, some new polling out there on immigration, the border. Really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
That's why this is going to be a fascinating year, because you don't know where it's going to end, because there's so many different variables that have not existed in previous elections before, as we have said. The biggest one is finally liberalism has hit reality.
Yep.
And that's why we keep stating, and thank you for our listeners that will throw that back at us when they see something and say, wow, here's reality hitting them right there. We've always said the Democrats' biggest problem is not Republicans, it's reality.
And it's hitting hard.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. In a win for election integrity, the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled 2-1 on Wednesday that mail-in ballots that arrive in envelopes with a missing or incorrect date are not valid in Pennsylvania, overturning a lower court's decision. So there you go.
Yeah.
Said the Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Whatley in a statement, this is a crucial victory for election integrity and voter confidence in Pennsylvania and nationwide. So there you go.
Yeah. All right.
An overwhelming majority of Hispanic Americans say calling the illegal alien accused of murdering 22-year-old Laken Riley an illegal, as President Joe Biden initially did, is appropriate. A Harvard-Harris poll finds. During his State of the Union address, as we all know, Biden used that term illegal. Afterwards, Biden said he regretted using that term illegal. Undocumented person, and I shouldn't have used illegal. I should have It's undocumented, Biden said. And then it was like, well, but he didn't apologize. That's what the president said. He did not apologize to a criminal. He was apologizing for using the term illegal in general.
Right.
A Harvard-Harris poll released this week, though, shows, you ready for this?
All right.
This is a problem for Democrats. 74% of Hispanic Americans find using the term illegal to describe Riley's accused killer is appropriate. Only 26% of Hispanics said the term illegal is inappropriate. Think about how much time the Democrats have over the last 20 years. When you say illegal immigrant, or illegal alien, which is the official term of the government,
right?
That no human being is illegal. It's like, well, no, they're an illegal immigrant,
right?
Which means they came into this country illegally.
It describes their behavior,
right? No one is illegal.
Yeah.
Across racial divides and the political spectrum, Americans are fine with using the term illegal to describe illegal aliens. As we just brought you, 74% of Hispanics are okay with it. The poll shows totally 79% of Americans deem the term appropriate, including 81% of white Americans, 74% of black Americans, 80% of Republicans. You ready for this?
All right.
79% of Democrats.
Wow.
And 78% of swing voters. In general, 73% of Americans said it was appropriate to use the term illegal immigrants when referring to those who are living in the U.S. illegally. That includes a majority of white Americans, Hispanic Americans, black Americans, Republicans, Democrats, and swing voters. And the poll also finds that in the wake of Riley's murder, Americans say that they want to see far stricter immigration controls in place to prevent waves of illegal immigrants from arriving in the United States. About 7 in 10 Americans, for example, said Riley's murder shows the U.S. needs stricter immigration policies, while only 3 in 10 say the issue is being exploited, which would be 30% is roughly 25 to 30% is roughly those who identify as liberal or far left.
Right, far left, yeah.
Some 72% of white Americans, 69% of Hispanic Americans, 64% of black Americans, 84% of GOP voters, 62% of Democrats, 64% of swing voters said Riley's murder confirms the U.S. needs an immigration crackdown. So when the Democrats go into their entire thing that what we need is comprehensive immigration reform and move people into the system to become legal, that's not what the American public is looking at, and that's not what the majority of Democrats are most concerned with.
No. We've pointed out time and time again, how many polls do we have to have that show that the liberals, that the Democratic Party is not in line with the American people? And I think it's getting, every time we do this, it seems like there is a stronger majority of Americans that side with the idea of border control, the overall idea. Now, going back in the Trump years, at that time, if you said, do you believe we need a strong border, people would say yes. Then if you introduce the words the wall or a wall, then the numbers would change a little bit. I wonder how many has anybody done any polling? I haven't seen it on a wall lately.
Oh yeah, remember we did it about
did that one get down to building an entire wall of what I guess
it was just
Trump's wall.
Would you
idea of a wall.
They didn't say Trump's wall. Would you be in favor of building a wall? And it was 52% of Americans said yes.
Okay,
So majority,
all right.
A majority now. That it was a big story because the majority now wish to build a wall.
Right. Yeah, that's right. It was 52.
Yep.
That's right.
52%.
Yeah. Now, okay. So then we have to ask the question again. If you associate Trump's name with it, do you agree with Trump that we should build a wall? No.
Well, but
do you agree we should build a wall? Yes.
But can you separate the two after what we've gone through over all these years?
After all this time, I would think you could not.
Yeah.
It would be impossible to separate the two. With most Americans. The far left doesn't want to admit it. They never want to. I mean, they're not going to be on board anyway. So, but yeah, I mean,
well, you may get some. If Trump gets into office and he talks about the wall, there may be some negative, implications where people will move to the other side because they hate Trump.
Right.
Who is against in this country punishing employers severely and not giving benefits and getting rid of sanctuary cities? Where does the public stand on all those issues right now?
That's a good question.
I haven't seen a poll specifically ask those things. And it's interesting that if Governor Abbott had not done what he did, this would not be as big of an issue.
No, I think and we've said this repeatedly, Governor Abbott deserves the credit for bringing this to the surface for everyone in a real way. By the way, the federal government has done a lot more of what Governor Abbott did.
Oh, yeah.
But Governor Abbott really did it in a way that brought, everything, I think, to the forefront. The federal government was and still is trying to hide what they're doing.
Well,
Governor Abbott was never trying to hide.
I would like to see the polling. Do you believe there's a difference with Governor Abbott of Texas sending however many people it is to certain areas when the federal government, when Joe Biden's administration has sent, and you could make it a lot more, people all across the country? Why is what Governor Abbott's doing immoral, but what President Biden is doing is not immoral? Would be interesting to see, because I think people know that. One thing people are up on, it's not a hard issue. If you start talking about the debt, people start losing you. What does that debt mean? I mean, trillions, whatever. Put that into perspective. I can't understand that, whatever. And, hey, we've had debt for years. It's going to be okay, because getting into the minutia of the numbers can be quite taxing. Illegal immigration's not. Very easy to understand. Open border, closed border, and allow legal immigration.
Yeah.
Where you go through the process of doing it. If you want to have temporary visas, well, then you can discuss that one. But once a temporary visa is up, work visa, whatever, then those companies would be fined tremendously. I mean, there's a number of ways to really cut down what's going on at the border.
Yeah.
And if you enact all of those, or say we're going to do this, and then see what happens, and then build a wall, you might have a lot more success in doing it. But I think that what we have seen over the last 3 years has really upset the American people, where more and more they're saying, well, I want it all. I want the wall built as they're finding employers, and we stop giving benefits, and we stop with the sanctuary cities. I think across the board, most people would say, well, let's not do one, do them all.
Yeah, right.
Because you're never going to have, we are going to need legal immigration into the United States. We've talked about this before. If you're going to grow an economy, Trump talked about it when the whole Jim Acosta thing, when Acosta got kicked out. They were talking about, and Trump was saying, and we agreed with him, that we need. He said we need a lot of legal immigrants come here because if you're going to have, and I forgot what percentage GDP job growth, or not job growth, but economic growth he gave, he said in order to obtain, what was it, 3 or 4 or 5%?
Yeah.
If we're going to do that, we're barely replacing the people here with the birth rate. And if you're going to, and we've talked about this before, you roughly had 2 to 3% growth, from, the entire time from post-World War II, to now.
Yeah.
But you don't have women coming into the workforce. More women are in the workforce now than men. So they're not coming in anymore like they did, especially in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Right.
As they came in. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then you had a baby boom that we're never going to see again.
Mm-hmm.
Those two things where you can probably look at you're probably talking, 50, 60, 70 million people over that time to create an economy that would go at 3% over decade after decade after decade after decade.
Mm. Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. That conversation is going to be harder to have and will remain that way until we fix the border in general. Until the situations in these major blue cities returns to, I don't know what normal looks like, but returns to more of a palatable situation with the people who live there. And that's not going to, I don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon. Part of the problem that the GOP is going to have, if Trump wins the White House and the GOP maintains control of the House and then gets control of the Senate, is that it's going to take a minute to fix everything that's broken. And people don't like to wait. Too many people think, well, as soon as you get into office, things should be changing, immediately.
Very quickly, 43.5 million people in the workforce in 1950. February of 2020, prior to coronavirus, 152.5 million. 110 million people in that time period in the workforce. Now, we had a growing population at that time also, which helped it, but you also needed a ton more people in order to produce that 3% roughly growth rate. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Cronin. I'm Gary McNamara. Wow. Longtime Democratic consultant says James Carville is right. Preachy women are ruining Biden's chances. We'll get to that. Our BS statement of the week.
All right.
Well, our BS statement of the day. 1 week might too long. Is Janet Yellen saying that green energy will lower energy cost over time, and it's a key part to fighting inflation. BS. Pure BS. Double BS. Double secret probation BS.
Well, you know that because the words followed Janet Yellen said. From that point on, you know it.
And then we asked a question earlier. Does she know she's lying?
Yes, she does. Yep. They all know they're lying, and they're okay with the lying. However they justify it in their mind, they know they're lying. They justify it somehow, but they do.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.